If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I have a special guest. This week it's James Forrester. Welcome to James in a second. The purpose of this show is to find out what's happening in the UK property market. The show itself lasts approximately 1 hour, and it's roughly split up in two. The first half looks at the UK property market. We're looking at the number of properties that are coming on the market, the prices that are being achieved, exchanges, price reductions, sales agreed, fall throughs, everything else like that. And we'll be discussing that in great detail. The second half focuses on a town or a city where we go to that particular town. This week it's on Haywards Heath, and where we actually spend 20 or 30 minutes, in essence, doing a Rightmove Plus report on steroids, where we really deep dive and look at the last 5.5 years. Now, if you're not from Haywards Heath, then you might find that particularly boring. However, if you are an estate or letting agent and you're looking for an unfair advantage to prove that you are a better estate agent, and you are actually a better estate agent, because you have to have the stats to back it up, we're going to be using a piece of software which, if you have that software, will prove that other agents are overvaluing, and their cheap fees mean that they don't sell many houses. So even if you're not from Haywards Heath, do check that out, because it's a fantastic bit of kit, independent piece of software which proves that you are a better estate agent. This week, as I said, I'm joined by James Forrester. James Forrester is a big in the game agent from the Midlands. There's a number of offices there, and he is very well known in the industry and gets quoted an awful lot in the national press. We are looking at week 32 of 2024, and just for the benefit of that is Monday the 5th of August, which is all the way through to include Sunday the 11th of August. James, thanks for joining us and coming back, I think for your third or fourth time, I think it is, isn't it?
I think it's fourth time. I think this time last year, though, I was sat in the south of France, I think.
I can remember it well, that the sun was out, beating down, a cool beer was in your hand. And now look at you, you're in your boardroom, waiting for the decorators to come in. But
full of rubbish, waiting for the decorators, and it's chucking it down outside. So you couldn't ask for a more comparison 1 year on.
I'm sure a holiday is in the offing very soon if you haven't gone on one already. Okay, James, shall we dive in and go and have a look at those stats? Let's not keep the ladies and gentlemen.
Go for it.
Here we go. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, we always start with the listings, and I spend a minute or so just chatting about it, and then James will come in and give his thoughts, okay? So this week we have listed 34,285 properties. To give you an idea of where we are, the white line on the chart now is this year. Last week it was 35.1, the week before 33.7. So we are generally ahead, again, James will give it, than the other years of 2017, 2018, 2019 and 2023. And the reason we've picked those years is that they are more normal years. We will be looking at those strange years of 2021 and 22 in other metrics of sales. But for listings, I think this is a fair crack in the whip. The average price of a property coming onto the market is £405,000, which is actually dropping. And again, we'll have a look at the graph in a second on that one. And year to date, we are on 1.13 million properties for sale that have come onto the market, which is 7.5% further on than 2023, 7.1% higher than the average of 17, 18 and 19, and actually 9.5% ahead of the whole 8 years that we've been running that. So, James, what's your thoughts with regard to the listings so far this year in the UK?
Yeah, so I think, look, obviously, if we look at the week that we're concentrating on, I think there's still a bit of an election bounce, obviously going ahead, new government in place, bit of positivity, change after so long. So people might be thinking, yeah, now's the time to get it on the market. Look, some people might be fed up with the new government already, and they might think, sod it, I'm moving overseas. So they might be trying to sell their property as well. You never know. And obviously, the Bank of England eventually did the right thing towards the end of July, obviously, and dropped the rate. So I think there'll be an element of that, even though that doesn't correlate with mortgages because they obviously go off the different gilt rates. But I think the difference is there. The key thing is that people will see positivity in the market and they might be going, you know what, let's get our property on the market. There's positivity there. Let's see if we can get it sold. Of course, these are listings, not sales. Two are very different things.
Okay, so it might be an opportune moment to look at the general stock levels of property that are on the market. And the yellow, we always measure this at the end of every month. So the yellow lines here are the end of July. So I know we're in the middle of August, but we don't calculate this until the end of the month. And there are 715,828 properties for sale today. When you compare that with the 21 figures of 450 and the 22 figures of 466, that is a hell of a jump, but very comparable to the 17, 18 and 19 levels. And again, just to give a context to this, if we go back to 2008, that figure was 1.4 million. So I wouldn't be too concerned with the level of stock, because it's what caused the house prices to drop in 2008. I know you know this, James, but just for the ladies and gentlemen, some of the younger watchers, is that a lot of people put their houses on the market, which increased supply. It was called the credit crunch, so banks weren't lending as much, so they weren't able to borrow the money on the mortgages. So demand was curtailed, and when you have excess supply and curtailed demand, prices go down. That is what caused house prices to go down, was the oversupply and under demand. So be aware of that. But I mean, what I would say to anyone watching this, that all these graphs that you see here are available to download on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast, they're on the description there. If you look at the description, scroll down to the bottom, there is a section that says download these graphs. And just so you are aware, the graphs are available for you to use at valuations and also available for you to use internally, but they are not to be used on social media. My daytime job is I'm a ghostwriter. I write articles about local property markets, and then agents publish them, and they also publish national stuff. So again, I ask that you don't use them on social media, because my fee-paying clients have to have something, but I don't mind you using them at the valuation. Interestingly, James, just the number of properties for sale compared to a year ago, and apart from Northern Ireland, but there's quite a range there, from the southwest at just over 20%, and outer London, which is 2.9% more.
Yeah, and I think I think it's like anything. Look, as agents, you've got to specialize in your local area, and it's one of the key things. When we look at all these stats, of course, we're talking, as we currently are, before we get into the later part of the program, across the board of the UK, and you've got to drill down your numbers to exactly what's happening in your area, because even though there can be a lot of properties coming on, as we've discussed on many podcasts before, in my own opinion, there's plenty of overvaluing going on, even today, which should not be happening today. It shouldn't be in a good market, and when things are selling really well, you can probably get away with it a bit more because the market's sort of pushing you along. When you're in a bit more challenging times, you should definitely not be overvaluing, because the property just sits on the market forever and doesn't do anyone any good. You're not getting paid as an agent typically until it's sold, and all you're doing is annoying your customer who's just basically going to go with another agent after so long because they've got fed up. And I think you've got to drill into your local areas. There's going to be streets in local areas that will probably still sell over asking price, at the moment, because they want to get in it. It could be because of the schools, jobs where they need to be. There's loads of different factors on it. But what I like, Chris, is the stat you did before. And a lot of people do ask me, about, well, when is the best time to sell? It's the number one question you get asked. And of course, it's like, well, when you need to, really. If you have to sell, you have to sell. But for me, the best time to sell your property was towards the back end of 2020 into 2021. It was the lowest interest rates we ever saw. The government were kicking out incentives left, right, and centre, especially with the stamp duty for a lot of people as well. But we had the least amount of stock going on the market, which was really interesting. So where now we have very little incentives, and I think it's wrong. Labour want growth. That's all we heard on the run up to the election. It's going to be growth, growth, growth. The property market, and I include the construction market and everything within that, because there's a lot of offshoots from it, there needs to be incentives to get people spending. And if you get that right with the stock that's going on the market at the moment, it will make it very interesting for sellers and buyers.
You're absolutely bang on there, mate. And interestingly,
Should be a politician.
when it comes to overvaluing, I only published this a few days ago, but I think this is the overvaluing stat of the year. That, you know, properties that are overvalued do take an awful long time to sell. And what this chart, this is data from 20EA, and basically what they said is if a property sells within the first 25 days of it coming on the market, its chances of falling through once sale agreed are 6%, with a 94% going through to exchange and completion. If a property takes over 100 days to agree a sale, the chances of that sale falling through go from 6% up to 44%, with only 56% actually exchanging and completing. And if there isn't a stat that proves overvaluing, and I think a lot of it comes down to James, is it really, there is a large minority of agents who get paid on listing bonuses, and they get paid on hitting certain market sales and market share analysis. And quite frankly, if you're focused on the listing, and I know you have to have it on the market to sell it, but if yes, there's no harm in overvaluing the property or giving an optimistic asking price. If it doesn't work in the first 2 weeks and you've said it at the valuation, we'll try it at 300, but if it doesn't work, we'll bring it down to 275 or 270. I've got no issue with that you're being upfront with the vendor and you try it. And there's some great agents that do that. I haven't got a problem with that. It's the agents that put it on at 300, and then it sits there like the proverbial fish on the quayside in the hot sun, and it goes off, and then you probably knock off 5 grand and 10 grand, and it stays on for 26 weeks. That is unethical overvaluing, where you say one price, but you don't actually tell the owner the other one, and then you leave it. Got to work that stock, haven't you? Anyway, should I get off my soapbox? Anything else you want to add on to that, mate, before we get back and go look at
No, I think you've hit it spot on, and I think that stat you've just shown there, about when the properties will sell within the 25 days or 100 days. Again, look, clients have choice at the moment. The buyers have sort of got the power. Where everyone's scrapping around for quality buyers. To get that. There's plenty of people, obviously, with the funds out there at the moment. They're all sitting waiting for mortgage rates to come down. So, they sort of have the power in their hands to go ahead or not. And I think it's one of the key elements of it. If you've got it right and you've got the right buyer, you take a reservation fee, so it locks clients in, then you're probably going to succeed on it. And if you're not doing that, then again, you're sitting wondering what will happen as an agent, and will you get paid in 4 months? And I'm being quite optimistic there, because realistically it's going to be 5, 6, possibly 7 months before conveyancing's got completed. And you may, as a company, get paid, you may not. And I think as company owners or branch managers, there's your target. For the person who's listing, I don't blame the people. If they overvalue because they're told just get listings on and they get paid for how many listings they bring on, well, they're sticking to their job description. So that's where the industry has to change.
You can't say listings, and then complain if they're not working the stock, and there you go. Right then, let's look at price changes. So this week, the average price of a property that was reduced was £387,400. And we've had 22,000 reductions. In terms of the number of properties that are selling, the number of reductions, we are looking, hold on a second, let me just take a 0 off that one. I just need to manually work that one out. At the moment, we are reducing 1 in 7.84 homes per month, which doesn't sound a lot to me. If there's a lot of it, when you consider, and again, here's a big stat, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you that watch the show regularly will know this stat, but nationally, for the last year, for every 100 properties that have left agents' books, only 53% of them have exchanged. The other 47 have withdrawn. So basically, you have a flip of the coin of whether you put the house on the market, whether you get paid and the homeowner moves. That's scary, isn't it? I was babysitting some Australian estate agents a couple of weeks ago, and they think 80% is a low sale rate. We're at 53. And again, a lot of that is overvaluing, isn't it?
We're too soft.
And again, the type of personality type that is attracted to be an estate agent. I don't know if you're into your profiling of people, but disc profiling talks about whether you're outward going or reserved or process or people. Most valuers are outward going people, and they use their vivacity and their friendliness to get the business. The problem is they hate rejection, so they'll do everything in their power not to lose the listing because, it hurts them. You can put 100 houses on the market, but you lose 101 and it's like end of the world dagger through the heart. Whilst Australian agents tend to be more across to the process driven, outwards going still, but a bit more processy, a bit of people, and they don't care if they lose the listing. And again, I find it fascinating, James, that you get 3 agents out, agent A, B, and C, and agent A and agent B are realistic. Agent C is unrealistic and overvalues. So at the end of the sole agency, which agent does the vendor go to relist? Well, more often than not, it's agent D. They won't ask A and B back because agent A and they won't go back to A and B because no one wants to be proved that they look stupid. So they'll go to another agent, and the agent, the agent says, "Call me back if you haven't sold." No one's going to ring you up and say, "Okay, you were right, I was wrong." They'd rather save face and go to another agent, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think obviously I bang on about this on every podcast we do. Of course, agents in Australia get paid a lot more money, and I think that's what it. And I think in a way that helps a lot more because we have to be the only, and this is where I'll be on my high horse now. We have to be the only industry now still where we only get paid once the job is completed. So you've got all that expense from marketing, payroll, everything going through on the hope, and it is on the hope that the property will complete 5-6 months down the line and you get paid. That's a huge risk if you think about it, when you look at it. And you've then got to look at the commission, and every region's going to be very different. And obviously I see comments that pop up on your channel and people will go, yeah, but in my area we only get this, in this area we get that. Every area is going to be a little bit different. But the issue, I think, with the industry as a whole is that we have led ourselves down a sort of a hole of trying to charge far too low fees to win business. You can blame the online people for that if you want to. There's a bit of a rise on self-employed people, obviously panicking that they're not getting enough sales, so they're dropping their fees, etc., etc. Not all of them, but there is, and there's well-known agents who will do it as well. They'll go, right, I'll do it. But if you sign today, in the Midlands where I am, they would go, if you sign today, we'll do it for £2,000 as a flat fee. £500,000 house. It's ridiculous, and you can't compete against it. But I think that's one of the issues. And I think if there was more regulation in the industry, and I'm pushing for more regulation, on this, I think one of the key elements is that you can then refuse business, and as a company or as a lister, because effectively you would get paid more. So again, that'll help inflation obviously go up. So it won't be the best in the world, but obviously I think the key one is you feel more comfortable. You can be more honest with your clients as well, because in essence you will earn more over time, and you don't have them financial pressures of trying to get everything to survive. And I think at the moment there's probably a lot of that going on because we've come out of lockdown. I'm not using the C word. We've come out of lockdown where a lot of businesses were destroyed. We've then gone into, after September 2022, rightly or wrongly, whose fault it is. We all have different opinions on it. We then went through the 14 interest increases that really rocked the market slightly and took everyone a little bit by surprise. And obviously then we've gone into election season. That's exactly what we needed. But we've got over it now. We've seen the Bank of England do the right thing. We've got a new government in place. They're all saying the right things. Well, let's now see if that sort of comes to fruition. And I think this is where changes could be made for the better. The likelihood it's not going to happen. But I think if people were getting paid more from an agency point, you would actually have a lot more training going ahead. A lot more people would be able to be very open and speak their mind of how it should be, and refuse business.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I agree with everything you say, apart from one thing, that ROPA and regulation will, by very nature, increase fees, because all ROPA is setting the rules of the playing field. If everyone decides to do the exams, That's not going to, and everyone's hoping that half the estate agents will fall out of bed because they don't want to do the exams. Demand and supply will mean fees will go up. But if everyone decides to do this exams, you're just setting the rules of the game. The reason fees have gone down, and this is interesting, is that I've got stats. I haven't got the graph on me at the moment, but basically the average fee in 2006-07 was 1.6%, and today it's 1%. And that figure, and this is a survey of 10,000 vendors every single year through the Property Academy, best the best agent guide, and the graph is a linear line that's straight. Remember, Purple Bricks only came online in 2014. The vast majority of that 1.6 drop happened before 2014.
Yeah.
So the online agents haven't created this. The industry has created this. Roper will make no difference to fees. What the bottom line is is that we are so desperate. There's too many agents, and we are desperate for stock. We don't train ourselves in and train and develop ourselves. We will do everything just to get the listing
to survive.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because in Australia, and when we talk about these fees, let's be really honest here, because if you got any sort of business coaching or training or anything, and I've had them before, and I think they're great if you get the right ones. They will certainly make you think and act differently. Just that little difference in fee makes difference. I think the average in Australia goes between the different states that they've got, so between 2 and 3%.
Yeah.
Now, at the moment, it's like you'd think, well, some people will be going, well, I get 2% already, fantastic. All right. But the majority are not, as you've just said. Most people are charging 1%. And there's a lot of them are going, we do 1%, but we do a flat fee. So actually, if you work out the flat fee, it's like 0.4%. Again, every region's different, but this is what you end up seeing. Well, if all of a sudden, if you're just for easy, you're going at 1%, having your fees at 2% is very, very different. And again, it just means that as an agency, it takes. I think the pressure is always on because you've got to outperform your competitors. You are in competition, but you can provide more training for your staff. That means you get a better caliber of staff. That means that clients will, you can put extra things in like sales progression, for example. Not every company has it because they simply can't afford that extra payroll. To do that. And then you get caught in the horrible trap of trying to chase up. Of course, conveyancers, just going to be pretty blunt here, don't like you chasing them, on that point, or a good majority of them don't. They just want to tell you when they're ready on that point. And it's a horrible on that. And I think as an industry, we have to come together and say, look, people need trained up correctly. That's from an apprenticeship level, people coming in, there's a lot of young people.
Right. And then the mature ones need developing.
And develop, yes, correct.
It scares me that there's like 8 or 9 estate agency trainers for 13,500 estate agency firms. I know some of the bigger boys and girls have got in-house stuff, but probably only the top 50.
Some are good, some are not too good.
Indeed. Right. Let's get back to the Stalaroonies. And again, just final thoughts with regard to fees is sometimes you need proof of why you're a better agent. So therefore, do watch that Haywards Heath report, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not from Haywards Heath, and you'll see the software, which again, you can have access to prove that you are a better estate agent. Because if you're charging 1.5 as opposed to 1%, say that's like an extra couple of grand. If you can say, yes, you're only spending 2 grand more, but I'm going to get you an extra 10 grand more, and here's the proof. It's very powerful if you can do that. But anyway, let's get back. We are really on our soapboxes today. We're halfway through the show. We haven't even got our price reductions, but here we go. Let's move on to gross sales. Okay, so this week we have sold. Just pull up the numbers here. This week we have sold 24,876 properties, which is a little bit lower than last week, because last week it was 25,700, week before 25,800, and the week before 24,300. But just have a look at how much further on we are compared to other years, where in 2019, we've got numbers here of 22, 22, 20, 23, and it's just under 25. So you'd have taken that to say that we are 10% ahead of we are well over 10%. We're nearly 20% ahead of where we were last year. And year to date, which we'll just pull up now, year to date, we are 11.6% ahead of 23 and 6.8% ahead on gross sales of 2017, 18 and 19. The average price of property coming on the market is 358. and we'll just do this because it's included. The gap between the average price of a property coming on the market versus the average price actually selling, and this is not because these are different numbers here. So the average, if you took the average price of all the listings, that is coming down, as you can see here, and then the average price of a property that actually end up selling is also dropping slightly. But again, the lower price properties have a higher chance or a higher propensity to sell. Hence why there's that gap. It's the gap. But again, James, just have that. I find this fascinating. Here is look, it always drops in the summer. So there's the drop. There's the drop of June, July, and August, and then it bounces back up. And that is the bounce back up in 23. We are going to have that bounce back up in early August, and that is all down to London. So what happens, ladies and gentlemen, in London? London goes on holiday. You know, London, nothing happens in the property market, hardly in London, whilst everyone else is going on with their lives in the market. So then all of a sudden the gap gets much narrower, as you can see here. So this is the late spring, summer here. Then that's going to, everyone will put their Chelsea 2-bedroom terraced houses on for $1 million at the start of when they all come back from Provence and, you know, Italy and things like that. It's the gap. I mean, that gap this week is quite interestingly, hold on a second, 13%. That's been running at over 20 for the rest of most of the year. Average prices, there you go. That's the average. The green is the average price of a property coming on the market this week, and the turquoise is the average price coming on the market selling. The asking price of a property when it goes sale agreed. We don't know what it's sold for yet, but what we do know is this: on the long term, it's always between 1% and 2% below the asking price. That normally. Okay. Any thoughts on the gross sales?
Time of year, everyone, like you said, London, but I think you know, a lot of people.
You've got to admit there, even you know. But to be ahead, 10
it's
or
not
20%.
overly bad. I do think obviously a lot of the lower priced properties help that. You know, because depending on regions, again, you know, where I am, obviously, it's been hit harder on the more expensive properties. Not many people are buying them. The lower priced properties are selling. Of course, so there is that. But again, schools are on holiday. Most people disappear in August. They want to go and get their tans and go and switch off for a few weeks. So you're obviously not going to get a lot of, you know, you'll do a lot of chasing to get the offers in, and people who probably looked before they went away on holiday and they're thinking about it. But you know, that's just part and parcel. We all know that the industry pretty much goes on holiday in August and December.
But
you know, that's our life.
I think you're being a bit mean there, mate. I'm quite chuffed a bit with the level of gross sales. I'm not particularly happy with the level of fall throughs, which we're going to come on to in a second. But in terms of gross sales, you know, to be between 10 and 20% further on than the more normal years, it's absolutely bang on. Right, let's move on and look at fall throughs. Here we go. This is the number of fall throughs that we're looking at, and you can see here that you know, ignore the spikes, ladies and gentlemen, down because they're the Christmas spikes. Where nothing happens. Just go back to this one. The number of fall throughs. This is the trust budget. The fallout of the trust budget. This is early 2023, and the fall through rate started to rise in the summer when interest rates started to kick in. She drifted downwards. Obviously, we've got the Christmas drop, and then as we go, the number of fall throughs has been rising. The fall through rate, which is the number of fall throughs this week expressed as a percentage of the number of gross sales. Again, we've got the spike. This is the trust budget here. Christmas spike, ignore it. Then it leveled off at 20. Sorry, go back. That is the uplift when interest rates started to kick in. Slow drift downwards, Christmas spike. And again, it is going back up again. Does this concern you?
It does. I think what interesting is when you look at if we call it the Liz Truss spike, it shows it did it. If you're going to buy a house, you were going to buy a house no matter what. You would have still gone through it at that point. So I still think a few people falling through, we're going to fall through then no matter what. I think at the moment, I think fall through rates are slightly worrying. I think it's not an alarm bell at the moment, but I just think it's got to be watched closely and what you can do to get things through. These could be for a lot of different reasons. One, people's affordability may have changed. It is, we have to be honest here. We're talking about the property market, but outside the property market, there's certain industries are finding it very tough still. Unemployment, I believe, has just slightly risen. So that could affect it slightly, obviously will affect it slightly. People may change their minds. They might just look at it and go, you know what, I don't want to move anymore. I'll do my extension and stay where I am. You'll have that. And of course, one always to look at is how long it takes from agreeing a property to be sold to actually getting the property sold. And the longer it takes, the bigger risk you've got to fall through. And I think this is the most worrying factor for me, is that as I sit here, we still have sales that are 6-7 months down the line. And not all conveyancers. We have some great conveyancers, and there's also bad conveyancers, and there's run in the mill like agents at the end of the day. But I think the longer it takes, it is a worry on that point, because people can just change their mind. They'll look at it at the moment and go, you know what? If it took 5 months, well, next month my decision in principle, my AIP, whatever everyone likes to call them, expires. So I'm going to have to redo it again. But within that, my credit rating may have changed slightly, because all you had to do was spend a little bit extra on a credit card, and your rating will drop dramatically, and it'll take ages to go back up when you've paid it off. So you might find that also will have fall through rates as well. Has it happened to the person selling? Have they pulled out because the property they're buying has changed as well? There's loads of different options, but I'm slightly worried on it. I'm not alarmed, but I am slightly worried.
I'm going to take a slight more positive route. You're concerned, but you're not worried. Okay, we need to be aware of it. And I think the big one here, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you think about it, we are comparing the fall throughs from sales that have happened in the past versus a metric, which is the sales that were agreed this week. And what we probably should do is, and I think I'll see how I can do this in my mind, is we probably need to compare the fall throughs versus the number of properties that are in sales pipeline. So let's just pull that up here, and when there are the yellow lines are the unit numbers of properties in sales pipelines at the end of every month. The white lines are July, so we can compare. There are, here we are, 502,000 properties. Now, let's put aside the fact that sales are taking longer, although actually nationally, the length of time it takes to get a property from sale agreed to completion has gone down approximately 12 days, this 12 months versus 12 months before. Most people think it's getting worse. It's actually getting better. It's still rubbish, but it is.
I was going to say 12 days is still not great.
No, it's not. I know it's not great, but
improvement.
It has got better by approximately 12 days. Okay. Look, the magic thing is this. Here we go. You had 502,000 properties in agents' pipelines compared to 424. So therefore, if there's 20% more homes in sales pipelines, have we got 20% more fall throughs? They're about the same. Numbers wise, a bit more, but I don't think it's 20% more. I'll have to work it out properly.
I'll be interested on your next few weeks watching your guests to see how that increases, because I think obviously it will still keep going up.
It could, well, again, if the sales pipeline is 20% more than it was last year, then I would expect fall throughs to be 20% more. So what we're going to have to do is see if I can come up with a graph that measures fall throughs as a percentage of sales pipeline. That could be very interesting. I will see what we can do on that one. Okay, so again, let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, normal fall through rate is 24.28. So we are slightly ahead, but again, compared to other week 32s, it's not bad at all. Let's move on to next. Anything before we look at net sales, mate?
No, because they'll all fall in line pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are net sales. The white line is this year. The pink line is 23. The orange line is an average of 17 to 19. And then the yellow, green, and turquoise are 21, 20, 21, and 22. I love this graph because it just shows you that the market dropped out in that awful year with the C word, but then bounced back there. So I think you have to ignore that. But when you consider that Net sales at the moment, let's just pull that up. Here we go. 18,253, because this is the stuff we're going to get paid on. And we're at 611,000, which is 104% further on than 2023. And again, give you some examples. So 4.6 year to date further on than 17, 18 or 19, and 13.9% further on than last year. So therefore, everyone should be paid 13.9% on the rate we're going more this year than what we did last year, which can only be good news for estate agents and homeowners moving. You know, and look here, look, we are 3,000 or 4,000 more on than what we were last year net sales. If only we didn't have so many fall throughs, we would be up here. If we were having the same level of fall throughs than what we were having in 17, 18, 19, that white line would be way above. But remember, our pipelines are much bigger, so the fall throughs, like we just said, is going to be more. Anything on this you want to say?
Well, it's obviously relatively to the news that's going on at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot greater demand for housing than there was obviously years ago as well, because you know, just natural progression within the UK. You know, we're not building enough, and there's more people asking for more homes. So, you know, we'll always expect that figure should be improving compared to, you know, the normal markets of 17, 18 and 19 on that point anyway. So I think everyone within the industry would be going, they want it to be a lot better, without a shadow of a doubt. Because there's a lot more agencies sharing a lot more stock. But I think it's just where we are. I think it's not over alarming. I think we're still in an adjustment period where we'd expect. I think most agents, if they're going to be honest, and I'll just go from my own opinion, we were expecting, you know, if you looked at last year, we were already expecting to be out of the sort of out the dungeons, if you wanted to look at it, from how everyone was looking at it in 2023. You know, we can see it with the figures there on the screen, you know, at 14,758. It's just took longer at the moment, and it's getting pushed back, isn't it? You know, as we speak today, inflation's risen again slightly, and they're expecting it to go up again because of wage inflation and also, believe it or not, house price increases. So it'll be interesting to see now how the market, well, the Bank of England reacts going forward, because we need people with more disposable income, you know, because that's how they look at it really when they start to buy more houses. But I think the election spooked the market a little bit, in my own opinion. And I think now we'll push back into the end of 2024 before we really start to see the market move.
There's always excuses. The market
is excuse, it's facts.
No, they're facts, but there's always problems. You know, there's Ukraine. There's been, you know, go back to the 70s, the oil crisis.
Wasn't it the end of 2020, according to the stats?
It was. There's always issues, but people always want to move, and your job as an estate agent is to find those people that want to move, and get their house on the market to realistic asking price. You know, it's easy. It's not hard. It's you know, easy to say, it's hard to do, but fundamentally our job is to find people that want to sell their house, whack it on Rightmove at the right price, and charge a decent fee to find a decent buyer at a decent price that the buyer and the seller are prepared to accept. Anyway, a couple of extra graphs there, percentage of change, price changes as a percentage of listings, and gross sales as a percentage of listings as well. Just some extra little graphs, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are in lettings. Those are the average rents between 2016 and 2024. And, you know, you were actually going to say here, inner London, 2000, you know, the average rent in 2016 was 2,492, and now it's 3,133. I think this is absolutely fascinating, that rents in inner London, and just so you're aware, inner London is the core postcodes of SE, SW, W, N, NW, and E, and the two central postcodes of EC and WC. That rents in inner London after inflation are still 4.9% lower in real terms than what they were in 2016. Isn't that scary?
It is. But also, I think, like, if you look at the Northeast, for example, which is obviously my original stomping ground, the Northeast is a huge area. You know, Newcastle's very different to Middlesbrough, for example, which would be classed as the Northeast, and things. I think for rental, it's really interesting because it comes down to two things, really, doesn't it? One, interest rates jumped dramatically, so it actually started to be cheaper to rent than it was to buy, which then makes sense for people to rent properties. And I think there is a huge market for people who just need to rent and don't actually need to buy altogether. And I think the build to rent sector is really starting to
Yeah, you're
show
right.
this.
You're right.
And landlords should be worried if they are not making sure that their own apartment blocks are not managed correctly. If you've got and it's my little rant because I've been dealing with this all the last few weeks. It's if you've got a management company there not performing, you need them out and you need to get a proper one in. If that means you pay a little bit extra, you make sure it's done because that's the first impression. It's not your property. The first impression is the building and when they walk through the door. So you need to make sure everything's correct and working correctly. I also think, obviously, again, we bang on about it every single year within the industry. And when we always get asked for the statements, it's the same again. We simply do not build enough. And unless we start building more and we have more supply, then that's the only way that rents will fall. I've argued this. People will argue me through and through on this. Obviously, I build as another part of my business. And we specialize in build to rent and student accommodation. I know students won't be in this, but it's the same scenario. If you're being told to build and you go to planning and you're trying to build for it, just numbers, 300 units, and the council turn around and go, well, we don't like the scheme, but if you build 220, we'll probably approve you. It'll get built, at 220, and then costs get passed right back to the end user, which is the tenants, because your margins have still got to be the same. And this is the worrying factor. So with Labour doing growth, I agree with that. I don't agree with building on the green belt. I think there's certain green belt you could probably get away with. I think there's enough brown belt area that you could build and old reused buildings that could be done first. And then we'll see rents fall. And that will be good for agents because they will get a lot more stock. Yes, it'll be lower, but obviously they will actually earn better. And more importantly, it's better for the person renting it because it becomes more affordable.
Okay. Interestingly, rents tend to go up in line with wages. Okay, so I was talking to a CEO. I won't mention their name, but I was talking to a CEO this morning in London of a decent sized firm. And we were let me just pull that up. Okay, hold on a second. Here we go. See, the average salary of someone in London has gone up by 27.1%, whilst rents in London have gone up by 26%.
I think, London's very different.
Okay.
And as you know, for me, I never comment on the London market because I find it a maze.
Rents nationally have gone up by about 26%, and nationally, and salaries have also gone up nationally by the same rough amount. What you tended to find is this: there was a lag between wages going up and rents catching up, and that's why we've seen a particular. What is, again, ladies and gentlemen, what I find particularly fascinating is in inner London, that big drop. We didn't see the drops elsewhere. That's basically everyone leaving London. The number, again, to give you an idea, the number of properties that were on the market in 2020 was on average about 120, 130 a month, whilst at the moment it's running at 80,000 a month. So
the only caveat I would add to this, and you'd think I'm passionate about rentals, obviously a lot of my business relies on rentals, is of course, if you go back to that graph, if you don't mind, just because we're on it, if you look at 23 and 2024, a lot of it shot up. And there's one big reason for that is because landlords got hit with interest rates coming to the end of a lot of their fixed term mortgages. And were obviously then, and this is the big thing with landlords. And I think it's probably a different discussion for another day, but I'll cover it very quickly, is that, of course, it's a business. They can't be emotional about it. Sometimes you have to take a hit, just like all businesses do on this point. But normally what will happen, as we all know, there's a lot of first-time landlords or accidental landlords, as we call them, obviously in the industry, that they would look at it and go, right, well, I'll just take York's because it's the end of the screen there. Well, my mortgage is shot up now from £400 to £900, so I'm going to charge more than £900 now, to make sure that this property literally does not cover me anything. And I think 23 and 2024 will have a big element of that. I think there's still more to come from it. The mortgages are starting to fall, remortgages are starting to fall again. So that's a real good sign. What will be interesting to see is as the remortgaging rates fall, how quickly does that get passed back to tenants? Because it went very quickly to charge tenants coming to the end of their tenancies or new tenancies, but how much of it goes back as the rate falls? I would really hope landlords listen to their agents, because the right agents will be telling them to drop it. To say, look, we get it and we understand, but if you do the right thing, you will have a tenant who will look after that property all the time and keep it just like a home, and they will pay their rent on time every single month. You can't ask for anything more than a landlord than them two perfect things.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, I think with that, we will now go and look at the local focus, which is on Haywards Heath. So let's go and have a look. Okay, James, we're going to be using a piece of software called Insights from a firm called 20EA. The Insights platform is available to all agents, and you can buy it on a town-by-town basis, a region, or nationally. I'm using the national one, but the town-by-town one is just the same bit of kit that you can use, obviously just based on your own town. I must stress that 20EA have not paid me to mention or talk about this. I am a huge fanboy of it, and it's one of my favourite pieces of prop tech. If you are interested in this bit of kit, most of the bigger firms watching this, your head office probably have this already. Most do. And so if you're looking for this on a regular basis, ask your area manager. If you're a local agent, then do reach out to 20EA Insights, and you'll have a look at it and just see how it works. But I'm going to be showing you the stats for Haywards Heath, mainly on residential sales. There's going to be a little bit of lettings. There's not so much data on lettings, unfortunately, but again, it gives you a flavour. But as I said, not been paid. I'm a massive fan of it, and it proves that if you're a good agent, you can counteract overvaluing and cheap fees. So let's go and have a look, James. Here we go. Okay, so the best way to describe this, in my words, are that this is Rightmove Plus on steroids with a couple of Saturn V strapped to it with lasers and glitter balls. It is truly magnificent. It allows you to go back up to 5 and a bit years. So at the moment, this goes back to 2019, and we will have 2019 for the rest of the year. Then it will go on to 2020. So it's always a 5 plus whatever year you're in. And the first thing we're going to do with regard to residential sales is look at which agent is growing their market share. Okay, so the first off that we're going to start off with is Mansell McTaggart, and you've got to admit, mate, a 21% market share, and a 21% market share that appears to be growing. I mean, we do have this upward spike, but we're only halfway through August, so I'll let that go. That's pretty good, isn't it? That is dominant. That's very rare. When you consider that Mark Revel, again, is around that early teens, that again, if I was to put a trend line through that, I would generally see just a level playing field. We have good months and bad months. Interestingly, it's just the average price is 537. So let's look at Mansell's. So they appear to be run of the mill average properties. So we'll look at the upper quartile in a second. Again, James, just jump in. I'll just keep talking until you jump in.
I think what's interesting there, and I think if you look at it there between 1 and 2, because there is such a big gap between third place, is Mansell McTaggart or Target, however they want to pronounce it. They've obviously gone on a big marketing spree because they've obviously taken a lot of market share. They were already high as it is, but as you can see, it dropped down to 20%, and they're way over 30% now. Where Mark Revel's and the same period have dropped. So they were there and it's just gone down. So what's happened? You'd have to ask.
I don't know. I would say more Mark Revels are treading water, not dropping or growing. But
listen, they're doing great compared to everyone else. They're doing amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Tell you what, most agents wanting 12% market share in a town is pretty good. I mean, Haywards Heath is massive, but Mansell McTaggart, they're part of a regional based agency, probably at top of my head somewhere around 15, 16 branches.
Yeah, that could be key.
So a lot of them are owner operated, so it's like a collective. Some are part of the chain. Dominant agent in that part of the world.
Fair play to two of them.
Right, PSP. So they're again pretty static there, although generally I would say general growth upwards, but not huge. Cubberton West, I would say there's probably level or slight drift, but nothing end of the world
Been
there.
around a long time, them guys.
Yeah, okay. Fox and Sons. So they're part of the excellent Connell Sequence Group. Okay. HomeWise, again, I'll just have a look at HomeWise, but just so you're aware, HomeWise are the agency that they'll be with one agent in the town and they take the properties on and in essence put them on cheaper prices with lifetime mortgages. That's the way that works. Interestingly, their numbers aren't that, in terms of sales, aren't huge, but you don't need many to get them away. Let's go look at Move Revolution, and they're hovering around that 5% mark. Again, look quite up and down, a bit like an oscilloscope on that one. Let's go look at Hamptons. Obviously, we are going to be looking at the upper quartile in a second. Let's go look at the second Connell Sequence Group. So Connell's guys seem to be slightly drifting downwards. I'm not sure what's happening there. Let's go look at Flint and Company. Marcus Grimes. Again, the figures jumping up there. Let's go look at the wonderful Savills. About 2. So would be interesting to see who the daddy agents and the queen agents are when it comes to the kings and queens of the upper quartile. Jackson Stops, they tend again to be upper quartile. Seem to be a slight growth there, but again, we are looking at this with the whole bulk of properties.
You're nearly double, aren't you? So
Henry Adams, Holroyds, Leaders. I know Leaders are very strong at the lettings, so but I would expect that from Leaders Romans. Bachelor Monkhouse, I love that name. Purple Bricks, Hunters, Brock Taylor, Martin Co, Struts, 1.9. Okay, Duffy and Company. We'll go down to 25. Belvoir. Seem to be great. That's nice to see. And the Zoom estate agents. There you go. So let's have a look at the upper quartile.
I think what's interesting, just before you move on to that, Chris, is between 1 and 2 as well, as you say. Well, man, this is what's the great thing for those who watch it, because I've done so many now. I'm not allowed to be on this if it's in my areas that I cover. So this is what makes it really interesting, because you're watching people that you don't actually really know. So you're like trying to work out quickly what they're doing or not doing right. But what's interesting is a Mansfield target, as you said, because they've got such a big spread across the area, we say 15 odd branches, give or take, where the Mark Revel have only got, I believe, 2 offices. So actually, if you look at it, and this is where it gets interesting and you get it wrong, but this is just what I look at really quickly, is Mark Revel obviously will have a lot less overheads than somebody, and that, so when you look at it and you work the figures out, it works really, really well.
Excellent. Right. Let's I was just seeing if we could find out their
thumbs up to them guys if they're watching.
I was just having a look to see if we could find their Facebook page. Let's have a look. Is it Revel Estate Agents?
They are on Facebook.
They are on Facebook. Here we go. Can't seem to find them. Pages. How do you spell Revel?
So it's Mark Revel and Co. REVILL.
Let's have a quick look. There we go. Nothing's jumping out. No, okay, we'll have to leave that one, ladies and gentlemen. We don't want to bore these people to death. Right, let's get back to the sales. Let's just have a quick look at the upper quartile. So I'm looking, I might go up a quintile, see how we get on, okay?
I'm expecting Hamptons to be at number 1. Oh, Savills.
Okay, let's just take it down to 750. Okay, that's the top 15 to 20%. Okay, so here we go. Now, hold on a second. Look at Mansell's. They're quite high. So let's just take Mansell's out just to see if there's almost like a glass ceiling at 1 million.
There we go.
There is.
They're still third, so that's good.
Isn't that interesting? Let's just take off the million there. So now all of a sudden, Mansell's, over 2 million are numbers, and then up to 104. So it obviously shows. Now, again, here's an interesting fact, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is only one location in the UK where the biggest volume agent, which in this instance is Mansell McTaggart, isn't it, is also number 1 in the upper quartile. And that's in Exeter, okay? It's very, very rare for someone to be the #1 agent for volume. Well, it's 1 out of over 70, 1 in 70 locations that we've done these shows, where it has the same branding. So if you are an agent looking to go into the upper quartile, unless you're doing something special like the Wilkinson grant in Exeter, you do need a separate brand. Okay. So here we go. We'll start at 1 million. So Savills are in #1 position. And then we've got Hamptons, Mansell, McTaggart, Jackson Stops, Stratton Parker. Again, the percentage is going to be all over the place because, we're talking with minimal numbers here. But, interesting stuff. We'll go down to #10. Knight Frank. There you go. Well, a quick look at Henry Adams as well. There you go.
Interesting there. If you jump tonight, Frank's average price per square foot, though.
Again, the pound per square foot on a national basis, when you look at the whole market, is absolutely fantastic. When you start looking at towns, the trends are a lot harder to judge. And again, we're looking at a town and we're looking at the upper quartile because the pound per square foot for upper quartile is a hell of a lot more compared to the middle market. What you tend to find is the really low stuff has high pound per square foot. Then she drops down in the middle, classic upside down bell curve. And then she goes back up again as you go out to the higher price properties on the pound per square foot.
Where that will really help and where this data it helps across the board, but where this can help is if people are trying to get into the new homes market, most developers will go off the price per square foot you're achieving.
Indeed. And do remember, if you are looking for new homes, the prime per square foot on a new home is always more. It's called the new build premium. There are some fantastic, if you are looking to get into new homes and you're not sure where to go and see the guys at the Land and New Homes Network, Kevin Ellis and Ian Stratford, top chaps. They'll help and guide you on that. They're almost like a fine and country. You can buy a license with fine and country if you want the posh end. They're a bit like a license to help you with land and new homes. It is a fantastic source of income. So we've had a look at that. Let's move on and look at how good these agents are at selling houses. And there's some really interesting stuff here. So we're looking at between the 14th of August 2023 and the 14th of August 2024. Interestingly, there's a lot of data here, and what I'm going to do is most agents will look at the new instruction and the new market share, but to be honest with you, we've already looked at that. So I'm just going to push that in slightly, ladies and gentlemen. Probably, there you go, hold on. So what we're looking at here, you're all going to be looking at your new instruction levels. Hold on, let's just do that a bit more. There you go, a bit nicer. There we go. There you go. I was messing about there and it didn't work. But there we go. Here we go. So we've already done new instructions and these are the sale levels. But again, we all know our job is to get the property through to exchange of contracts because that's when the homeowner moves and the buyer moves in and we get paid. And the true gold here, ladies and gentlemen, are these 4 columns here. Now, again, James, you know what's coming, but some people watching it, especially those watching the show for the first time, won't know what's about to come. And I will get you in a second. I want you to just have a quick look at the fall through rates and report back once I've just done this in the next 60 seconds. So in the last year, ladies and gentlemen, Mansell McTaggart in the postcodes, and again, I haven't mentioned what the postcodes are, but they are RH16 and RH70, should have said that at the front, have, in terms of left their books, 326 properties have left their books of Mansell McTaggart in those postcodes. How do I know that? Because a property leaving an estate agent's eyes, she exchanges or withdraws. That's the only reason a property will leave an agent's books. So therefore, out of the 326 properties that have left Mansell McTaggart, 220 have exchanged and 106 have left withdrawn and you haven't been paid a penny. The average in Haywards Heath is 58.66, which is a really decent figure, not only for the UK, but also for the Southeast. Okay, because normally that I would expect, in London, that's early 30s. Okay. In the Southeast, I would expect that to be probably a couple of percentage lower. So 58 really means that that's decent. So in the last year, here's a stat for you that Haywards Heath, if you put your house on the market with a Haywards Heath agent, you would have a 58.66% chance of actually getting moved. What we now need to do is look at how the different agents perform. And it's this number here. So therefore, again, some really impressive numbers here. But Mansell and Taggart have a 67.48% chance of exchanging, Mark Revel at 65, and PSP at 68. Fox and Sons at 50%, Cupid and West 61, Savills at 34. But again, upper quartile will. I'm just saying that for the record. The upper quartile properties have a lower propensity to sell. So therefore, if we were comparing like with like, we would actually look at the upper quartile. And I will do that just because it's only fair to the ladies and gentlemen watching. So here we go here. Hamptons have a really good exchange ratio compared to the others, 38, 58, 46, 84. So Jackson Stopp's cracking level of exchanges there. So again, if I was Jackson Stocks and I was going up against some other agents, you could say, with the properties over £1 million, you've had an 84% chance of actually getting moved, whilst with other agents, it's as low as 38%. So just bear that in mind, okay? So back we go. I'm really impressed here, James, that the top 3 agents are really tight and have got some fantastic exchange levels. Normally Mansell McTaggart being a big agent, 20% agent, I would expect their numbers to be a little bit on the raggedy side, because normally that's what comes with volume. A big round of applause to Mansell McTaggart.
Yeah, 100%. I think they've just got the beautiful what most people strive for is that all-rounded agency, and they seem to have been getting the success right there. And I think that could be, obviously the location and the reach, obviously, that they've got in them areas. But then, when you've got a bigger reach and you've got a lot more branches to manage, again, like you said, normally you would see that fall. And obviously I would say they've got some pretty good members of staff there and some great leadership controlling it to make sure it all works together.
We're going to be looking at some other stats in a second just to see that. But normally this is a great indicator on whether the other stats are going to be good as well. Fall through with the fall through rates all appear to be very tight in that early 20s. PSP, your fall through rates look slightly higher in the 30s, as does Fox and Sons, but the average is 24. Let's look at price changes. Who's working their stock? 87. Who the hell's that? Covent and West. So therefore, if you put your house on the market with Covent West, then 7 out of 10 homes that are coming on the market they are reducing. Although they do have a fairly decent exchange ratio. Normally, a high price change, it means that the exchange ratio is low because the property often withdraws. But their withdrawal rate is not bad. So well done on that one.
Top 2 again, smashing it.
Yeah, so yeah, nothing here that's screaming at me apart from that high rate there. Who's doing 60? Fox and Sons. Again, I would, that's not doesn't surprise me at all. But the big 3 agents around that 30 to 40 mark is fair.
Can you just go back across the screen again, just to see something's caught my eye there? Can you go back across again now? Yeah, I think, look, Jackson Stops there as well again. 67% of their stock getting sold, 25% price reductions. Great.
Yeah, just shows you. Just so again, some of you might notice in the bottom corner here, this year's market share, this, I believe, if memory serves you well, is for listings. That's your market share, August 23 to August 24. Last year's market share, August 22 to August 23. So it just gives you an idea. But again, and the percentage growth, if you're looking off low numbers, that's why Savills look really good. But it just shows you here, Mansell McTaggart, again, their market share just dipped. But again, the numbers are so big.
I spotted that before when you were doing your bit of talking, when I scoured the screen. And it's interesting because obviously it looks like that upper quartile has been either a lot of properties built, refurbished into that sector, because when we did the search before, it's all the same names popping up that were specialising really in that sector. So something's obviously happened in the 2 postcodes for that to happen. So
okay, right. Let's now move on and see who is overvaluing and what price they're achieving for the properties. So this screen here, which is called the Omni Valuations and Price to Achieve, is what, and again, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but we have to explain it this way. So But what's happened is this, is that 20EA have looked at all of your listings in the last 12 months. So Mansell at Taggart's 349, Mark Revels 211, so on and so forth. And then what they have then done is they have an AVM, an automated valuation model, like a Valpal figure for all of your properties. And then they've looked at what you put the house on the market for and compared the two, okay? And Mansell and Taggart, on average, have listed their properties 1.07% more than what they think the house is worth, what 20EA think it's worth. So what you can see here is the top three agents are valuing quite tight. There's not much overvaluing, whilst Fox and Sons and Cubbett and West do appear to be slightly, being on the more optimistic side of the valuations to what they think the house is worth. What the next column here, price achieved, is what price did you achieve when you did actually complete on it versus when the original asking price, okay? So Mansell McTaggart are overvaluing by 1.07. However, they're actually getting 0.31% less than their original asking price, which means if Mansell McTaggart put on the £600,000 house, they would achieve on average, £604,549, which is 8,613 more than the average Haywards Heath agent. So Mansell McTaggart could say, we will achieve, sorry, let me rephrase that. That's 8,000 compared to the average that's being got. So, the average house is 600,000. The average agent is achieving 598. Okay, but they're getting 604, which means they're getting £8,000 more.
And look at PSP Homes smashing it. I think they need a shout out as well. 2 branch agent. Look at that.
So this is what this is showing. Now, again, what I would say to you, Haywards Heath agents, is that you cannot use this data and in your marketing unless you actually have this product. Now, again, I'm not in this sale, I'm not on commission, but at the end of the day, you cannot use this data. This is just for your internal use. However, if you were to contact 20EA Insights, 20EA is the firm, Insights is the platform, then you might want to use this data because this is very, very powerful stuff. And again, just looking down the charts here, you can see how all different agents do work. And again, I will stress for the record, the lower numbers listings, you've got less to go at, which means that the numbers are going to be a bit all over the place. But I'm sure there's some stats in here that grab you and might be.
There's some big alarm bells, I can assure you.
Okay, well, it's not for us to mention those. It's for us to show the stats and let people make their own decisions, James. Right, let's move on and look at. So this is how long you take a property to sell. So this year it's taken, in the last 12 months, 58 days to get a property from new instruction through to sale agreed. Last year, 54. Okay. This year, it's taken 130 days to go from sale agreed to completion. Last year, it was 130 days. So it's about the same, okay? Which is against what was happening in the UK. It's gone down about 12 days. So you can get a flavour here of which agents are taking longer. So again, Savills are going to be taking longer because bigger properties do take longer to, well, I wouldn't expect, normally I'd expect the blue, so I'm not sure why their length of time it takes. Interestingly, the fall through rate doesn't change depending on price band. I did some analysis. It's they hardly change, whether it's the cheapest chips, middle or posh, fall through rates are very tight. But you get a flavour here. So Move Revolution take 52 days to find a buyer, and here we go. Their sales progression takes 115 days, all the way up to, let's go and look at Mark Revels, 62 days to find a buyer, 131 days to get that. And then let's go look at Mansell and Taggart, 48 days from new instruction to sale agreed, and 124 days. Finally, we'll just do PSP, 53 days to find a buyer, 130 days to get a property through to completion from sale agreed. Anything else?
But it's all very similar, isn't it? As from the market, from putting a property on the market, you're still looking at an average of 6 months to get to completion.
You can, but I mean, let's just look at this. Is that Move Revolution and Mansell and Taggart? I'd certainly say we'll get you moved quicker, and here's proof.
That was 172 days from going on the market.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Well, it's still nearly virtually 6 months. That's all I'm saying. It's across the board. It's pretty much still that sector which we need to
I'll give you
speak.
that. I'll give you that. Right. Finally, let's go look at rentals. First thing we're going to do is have a look at what average rents have done in the town. So we'll do most of 2019, and the average rent was 1,159. Let's look at the last roughly year. Here is damn it, 1,537. That's in line with the southeast on average. Okay, so we're looking at new instructions. We're not going to look at let agreeds. I think we can pretty much say, James, that a property coming on the market is going to let. So it's not like sell agreeds where only 50 of them go. So let's have a look and see. And again, this will give you a flavour of their stock levels. We don't know what their stock levels are, but properties coming on the market is a pretty good indicator. And we can see here that leaders have seen a slight drift downwards with regard to their number of properties coming on the market. We don't know if that we don't know if they're losing stock or just few of their tenants are leaving. But we'll just look at them all and just have a look. Stewart and Partners, interestingly, they didn't appear in the sales stuff. If they did, they were really low. We didn't catch their eyes. They seem
What's interesting though is PSP are there. Belvoir I was expecting to be there because obviously they're mainly rental, so I was actually surprised to see them on sales. But obviously PSP were sort of sitting third, I think, third, fourth on sales, and they're now quite high up with their lettings book. But again, Mansell Taggart again there, so really good. But the one I've seen drop off, so I don't know if they actually do them rentals, was obviously Revel, Mark Revel and Co, because they're not there.
Well, we'll have a look. So there's Belvoir. Okay. Do know those guys there. Really, really great team there. Okay.
As far as I can see, no, they are pure sales.
What? No, what, Belvoir?
No, Mark Revel.
Okay. Right, here we go. PSP.
Nice, yeah, growing.
Okay, Mansell Taggart.
Yeah, growing as well.
Duffy and Company. Open Rent. Interestingly, this will come out probably by the time this show comes out, but if not, it will be very soon. The open rent in the UK has grown from around 5% to 15% in the last 5 years, and we've got data on how much of that has come from new landlords and how much it's been nicked off other agents.
That'll be interesting.
That is, and it's a very interesting number. I can't share it with you now because we've got the raw data. We need to make sure we get it all right. I will share it with you off camera, and I will, ladies and gentlemen, share it on social media, all being one of the next 7 to 10 days on that. But it is a mind-blowing number.
Can you just pull that for the last year again, because it's gone back to 2019?
Well, that's what we want, isn't it?
I just wanted to pull up just to the last year, if you don't mind.
What, for the average rent?
Yeah, just so it can come back. I'll do. Yeah, okay. Interesting again there. Okay, interesting.
Okay, so there's
see that growth there that when you go through the chart, when we pull the date forward where it changes. So yeah, really, really interesting there.
Okay, let's go look at Hamptons, Holroyd and Holmes, Connells, Henry Adams, Martin and Co, Fox and Sons, St James.
Great name.
I mean, attracting landlords is a really, really difficult thing to do at the moment. It is actually as I know you know this, but ladies and gentlemen, my daytime job is I help letting agents attract landlords to their letting agency by basically guiding and supporting you and helping you create. And also, I create content for you because on your local property market. And I think that's really important, that if there's no agents talking about the local property market, great buy-to-let deals, what's happening to rents, what's happening to yields, that's what attract landlords to agency. You're very good at it, James, with what you do. You're a big content writer. You produce great content, which attracts landlords to you. And you know, most landlords don't love their letting agent. They just can't be bothered to move. So if you trap them by not saying landlords wanted, but talk about things like rents and yields and stuff like that, and what Sally Lawson teaches you, which is giving them fears on whether their tenant does, you know, putting fear of God on them with regard to, are you renting it right?
Legislation.
Yeah, so you either trap them to you by putting the fear of God at them, or you attract them by talking about the local property market. Then more landlords will come to you. You build relationships, nurture them. So again, little sales plug here. If there's any letting agents or estate agents in Haywards Heath that are looking to attract more business, then I'm more than happy to have half an hour with you over the phone and tell you exactly what to do. You don't even have to use my services. I will tell you what to do. I'll send you some training videos free of charge. In fact, what I would say is this: if you want to know exactly how to do it and not even ring me, then just text me on this number and just text me the word free stuff. And it's 07950 147 572. I'll repeat that: 07950 147 572. Text me the word free stuff. I will text you 50 videos on how to attract landlords to your agency. It's hard work. It takes patience. You don't need to pay me to do it. There's no course at the end of it. There's no, oh, well, I've got to keep the secret sauce. No, it's all there if you want. And again, there might be one agent in Haywards Heath that says, I like the idea, but I don't want to do, I haven't got the time. Then again, you can pay me to do it, but I will give you the whole technique for free if you do it yourself. All right, that's the end of the sales pitch, but I've got to do something to earn a living, mate, haven't I?
Yeah. Can you go back up to the top again, just to see the top view again? Just on where we are, so from there. Yeah, look, obviously for lettings you expect there, but I think it's great to see some independence up there as well, which is great to see.
It is. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you are an agent looking to exit your agency, the value is in your lettings book. You know, that they'll give you a proportion of your letting. Your lettings book is going, depending on how arm's length you are, but you're definitely getting 1.5 times turnover at the moment, if not more, if you can show that you're whole arm's length boss. And your sales pipeline, your sales business is worth probably 50% of your sales pipeline on their completion. It's not a lot of money, not a lot of money. Okay, James, I think we're there or thereabouts. So back to you for final thoughts.
Yeah, fantastic to some of them guys. I think for Haywards Heath, as you say, Mark Revels, the McTaggarts, PSP Homes, Jackson Stops again, they're further down the thing, but when you go across, you know, sometimes it's not always being in the top 3. You know, you can have a great agency still, you know, hovering around within the top 10 because, again, it's obviously different with overheads and everything. But when you've got that nice
different fees and things like that, you know,
exactly, it changes it. For me, I always go to look at what's actually happening. I'm not, you know, listings are important, but what's more important is what you do for your clients. So it's getting it through to the end line because that's when you get paid. So that's the stat I'm always looking at to see where it goes through. And I think, yeah, really good for a few of you guys. I think it's quite tight for a lot of you, but some of you are really stand out and you're doing a fantastic job. Just keep it up.
I'm really impressed that the biggest 3 agents, there's 2 big agents that are like head and shoulders above everyone else. And quite frankly, most of the stats are really, really good that back that up. So again, if there's any agent in Haywards Heath looking to topple them over, you're going to have a really hard job tackling them. But you know, if there's some great stats that you saw, consider the 20 EA Insights platform. Again, I'm not on commission, I bloody well should be. It's an amazing bit of kit, but it's the data and the way you use it. I'm really impressed with Haywards Heath. So, and again, we do this every single week. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. You're doing a cracking job for your vendors out there. There's always room for improvement. Finally, though, James, thank you for your input today. We'll definitely be inviting you back in a couple of months' time when it's your turn on the rota, because we've got about 8 or 9 of you, and you're all amazing. James, I love your insight. Thank you for watching this show. I hope you find it of use. I love doing it. I do it all in my own time. Don't charge for it. Just happy to produce great content to help you out in the UK estate and letting agency business. James, thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.